We now have Amir from Intersango, but essentially you're a Bitcoin expert, Amir, I think. And well, what I like is this is Amir's only slide, and I rather like it because it says "Downward Banks, Rise of Bitcoin." So over to you, Amir.
Yeah, how are you doing? Nice to meet you all. Yeah, I don't have much faith in the finance industry. I think it's a bit of a sinking ship. And I don't think the change is going to come from within. It's like going to have to come from outside. And I'm going to present to you this new system, which is really invigorating. And you know, we're not some flashy startup. We're just hackers. We're technology people that are like infused with and like absolutely fascinated with technology. And this is, I think, one of the most interesting applications of technology. There have been a number of really cool technologies over the years, like BitTorrent, and WikiLeaks, and Bitcoin is one of the culminations of the applications of a whole bunch of concepts that have come along. And you know, we're just hackers who are very much interested in these things. And yeah, what Bitcoin is really is the way you'd use it as a user is you have like a piece of software on your computer, and it has your Bitcoins on your computer, your wallet, and nobody else is able to touch those Bitcoins. Nobody else is able to tell you how to use those Bitcoins. You are in control of your entire financial infrastructure. You are essentially your own bank. And the most incredible thing is, for instance, myself, I've written my own Bitcoin client with my own Bitcoins that I've got, and I'm able to send Bitcoins to someone else on the internet, and it goes over an entire infrastructure which I have created as myself, as an individual on the internet. Because it is open source software, what that means is anybody can read how the code is written. And in the same way that someone can read French or Spanish or whatever language, I can read source code because I'm a programmer. And so I can actually read what is written, and I can see actually this is how it works. So this is a piece of software that actually came out 3 years ago and started off as an experiment. And I might be here explaining it to you today, and probably a large portion of you won't get it, but that's fine because they laughed at Columbus, they laughed at Marconi, and they laughed at Gutenberg. So, and they also laughed at Alexander Graham Bell. Western Union said that the telephone is nothing more than a mere toy, and they refused to invest in it. And something that has experienced immense amount of explosive growth. Like I said, we're not a flashy startup, we're just people. And this is an example of a piece of technology which has really risen from a community of people around the world who really like feel this, they really like look at this and they see something that this can bring to the whole world. You know, I can stand here and explain it's about digital money, but it's really so much more than that. You know, if you read the original white paper, Bitcoin is described as being a decentralized time-stamping system for contracts. And what you can do with it is so much more than is currently possible. It's just really unimaginable, like some of the things that are possible. So I think Bitcoin will always exist. Like no matter what, it will always exist because there will always be a class of transactions for which Bitcoin is only possible. So what can you actually do with Bitcoin now? Do I have the internet? So yeah, one of the things you can do with Bitcoins is there's a drugs market called the Silk Road. And what this is there's an anonymity network called Tor. And what it is impossible for people to stop to monitor your connections on the web. So you can actually set up websites which are totally anonymous. And there's a website which, using Bitcoin, as I said earlier, like no one can like stop you making whatever Bitcoin payments you want to make. There's this like online marketplace where people were actually able to order drugs from anywhere in the world and have them shipped anywhere else in the world. And last summer, this US senator came out.
They prevent people from tracking the financial end of this. Using real money, users purchase these Bitcoins, which can be traded at roughly $9 to 1 Bitcoin, and use them as proxy for real money when they buy things on Silk Road. It's an online form of money laundering, used to disguise the source of the money and disguise who's both selling and buying the drug. The transactions are anonymous, secure, and untraceable, a lethal combination that makes illegal underground websites like Silk Road possible. Well, Despite all their best efforts to stay under the radar, news media have begun to report.
Or like another thing you can do is like make donations to politically subversive organizations. So, last summer, I think it was, the US Department of Justice put pressure on WikiLeaks and within a single day had their MasterCard, their Visa. Oh, one sec. Yeah, hello? No, I'm in a conference. Oh, okay, bye. Sorry, it's a friend. Oh, okay. Okay, so the Department of Justice had their PayPal, their Visa, their MasterCard, their Amazon, their Swiss bank, and their domain registrar shut down in a single day. And the only form of payment they could accept was Bitcoins. There's also another guy who's working on a really interesting project where people can build 3D printers in their home, and 3D printers is a totally subversive technology by itself. Like instead of having something shipped from China all the way over to Europe and then having to sell it in the shops, I can now print it in my house. And the Pirate Bay added a new category to their website not so long ago. You have books, films, movies, music. They added physibles. And what you can do is download the plans for these 3D printers. And one of the items that got uploaded was the plans for a Warhammer 40k model that got taken down by a DMCA request last December. And this guy was actually working on a 3D printable gun, which he actually set up on the internet and was raising funds using PayPal and Indiegogo, which got shut down. And he had to start accepting Bitcoins, and he ended up raising $20,000 to make his project a reality. There's also you can actually buy food with them. There's like a bunch of restaurants in Berlin, which, like when I was living in Berlin every day, we called it the Bitcoin bar, and we went every day and we were just buying food. And it was like a project for the whole Kiez, which is this whole street, for all these merchants to accept Bitcoin. And they're all really enthusiastic about it because it's like in the bohemian part of Berlin. So I would make a demonstration, but I don't have Bitcoin. So one of the things that we're working on now is a Bitcoin credit card. So I can actually show this. You can actually buy debit cards which are reloadable with Bitcoins like that. There is also you can actually also get a Bitcoin Cash. And what this is a physical manifestation of a digital currency. And you can actually use them as coins to make payments in everyday life. And so what it is the coin is if you irreversibly damage it, you can actually unlock the Bitcoin that's locked inside the physical coin. But there's a lot of work that needs to be done. In China, there was an example, so there's different types of virtual currency, type 1, type 2, and type 3. And type 2 currencies, you can only buy into the economy, whereas type 3 you can buy into and then sell to move out. So that's Bitcoin is a type 3. But in China, there was this currency called QQ coin, where what happened was people were buying these, and then merchants started to actually accept this because there's a huge demand for virtual currencies in China. And so they started to develop this black market where people could actually sell QQ coins for real cash. And so that actually made it into a type 3 currency, and the Chinese government had to come and shut it down. But the whole point about QQ coin was that the currency was very flexible because there are a lot of infrastructure that was developed outside QQ coin on top of that. Now Bitcoin is a very early system. It's like a brick in a larger system of what is possible. And we still have to build a lot of that. And part of the question is how can we improve the liquidity by actually building a lot of this infrastructure? But then the other half of that is actually if we improve the experience of Bitcoin, if we actually develop a lot of these things around it, a lot of that stuff will just naturally develop and we won't have to worry, So. Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. The two things I cannot emphasize enough about Bitcoin really is it is a system which is based off of mathematics and cryptography, not laws and legislation. Because when you have a system which is based off of people and subject to the social fallibilities and failings of people. You have a system that is subject to corruption and failures. The other thing I cannot emphasize enough about Bitcoin, the second point, is it's decentralized. It's completely free from control. Nobody controls the infrastructure. And all of the amazing properties of this system evolve out of that property, that it's always running. There are no bank holidays, no closing times. It's international. There is no concept of borders. Like, I have a friend in Iran who contributes enormously to the free software movement. But because of one attack by one politician and another politician, I'm talking about the US embargo on Iran, he cannot participate in the global economy. That is incredibly unfair. And that is another example of corruption in finance. What is it when I'm in Amsterdam and I have $2,000, and to send that $2,000 to London, I have to pay 20% in markup. That's like $400 just for moving money around. It's ridiculous. In the digital age, And there's no fees. There's a new privacy model Oh yeah. Okay.
Let's ask some questions. I know. I know you're very passionate, Amir, and that's very, very obvious. But does anyone have a question when they want? Oh.
So the fundamental underpinnings of Bitcoin are very interesting.
Yeah.
But a key component of any currency is trust. And we're quite irrational creatures, and we form trust in very instinctive behavioral ways. What's going to happen for Bitcoin to be a truly trusted currency en masse rather than for just hackers?
Well, I don't really need to say we need to do this and this, because there's already an economy that's working. It's like the biggest, I think, virtual currency in existence, It's like people are actually using it. I was going through my list, but I didn't actually get to finish my list of what you can buy with Bitcoins. I should turn this phone off. But it's actually something that's being put into practice. No. There's as I said, there's whole class of transactions for which only Bitcoin can exist. And it's enormous imperative for people and drive to use Bitcoin,
Can I be a millionaire overnight? Can I create my own money?
No, that would be ridiculous. Why would you want that?
Well, how
that would be silly.
Well, you talk about Bitcoin being completely decentralized. Where does the supply come from?
Mathematics. Yeah.
I don't understand that.
Well, okay, I can explain how Bitcoin works, right? What it is, it's tied into the infrastructure and how Bitcoin actually works, I've
got a calculator at home. If it's mathematics, I can just put loads of numbers in.
Right, but the underpinning of the infrastructure for securing the network is tied into how the supply comes into the network. Yeah, I don't know how to do that. It's my mum's. I don't really use a mobile phone, so I'm it's funny.
How Bitcoin's created, that was the question.
Yeah, so for securing the network, people do this calculations, these mathematical calculations, and as a reward for doing this really valuable work, they get a small reward.
From who?
Well, it's just part of the infrastructure for the network. So when you're computing mathematical riddles, you're using up processor cycles. When you're using up processor cycles, you're using up electricity. And when you're using up electricity, that is costing you money. And the way it works is there is some self-adjusting algorithms. The more electricity is being consumed, and the more people who are competing to do these calculations, the more difficult it gets to do these calculations. So much so, in fact, that the reward for generating Bitcoins is actually zero. So it's actually an example of a market with pure market competitiveness. It's purely driven by market dynamics, because there's basically no barrier to entry to this market.
Bitcoins are created from electricity.
That's not quite how it works, but maybe you can put it that way. It's actually something that's it's if you were asking me what is an operating system? Is it like a computer? You know, I would have to explain like that. Okay, there's an I/O layer in your computer, and you need to have access to these device drivers. You know, so it's part of like some complex.
How do you get 20 bitcoins? If I want to get 20 bitcoins tomorrow, how do I get that?
Yeah, well, you can offer services. You can do this mining, or you can do a trade with someone else who has bitcoins. So asking if I have euros, how can I get dollars? Will you either do a trade, or you offer some service, or you do some valuable work.
If the European Central Bank prints euros, who's printing the bitcoins?
No one's printing bitcoins. It's tied to the underpinning of the network, how the network functions.
I can explain briefly what they are. There's a mathematical series.
Yeah.
Can you tell us in English?
Cool.
There's a mathematical series a bit like prime numbers, but there's not an infinite supply. There's only about 1 million being discovered, and people, and those are basically what represent the bitcoins. And so you buy one of those numbers. I mean, someone keeps a registry of who owns which number. So you might own the number 5 or the equivalent of. And so we can try.
So how do you create an exchange rate? There needs to be an exchange rate.
Well, it's a free market trading thing. So you post on, I'll sell for $9, and someone else can go and sell, buy for $9, and then it clears. So it's a bulletin board exchange system.
It's a floating exchange rate.
Bitcoin if anyone wants to buy. I'm serious.
Hi. Sorry, firstly I want to condone a few very cynical remarks and cynical tones of voice from people around here. It's a complex system, in all fairness. I don't necessarily agree with it, but it is very complex, and I suggest you go and read about it on Wikipedia if you really want to learn about it. The issue with Bitcoin is that it fundamentally right now relies on exchange into fiat currency, right? Everything eventually turns up in real money somewhere. All the exchanges, all the major exchanges, even your own, I guarantee, somewhere underlying it has an exchange into real money. And a lot of it is actually the trade in Bitcoin actually revolves around people gambling, just as they do on the currency markets today, in terms of the valuation, because it is uncontrolled, because it is unaffected by economic variables, and so people are trying to suss out how to game it. The largest exchange in the world, Mt. Gox, which controls about 76% of Bitcoin currency trading, is all gambling at the moment, right? So it's almost like a gaming currency. I see lots of potential for it, but I don't think it's quite there yet. And I think the fact that it's also finite also ensures that there's, you know, the gaming that you can do around the Bitcoin universe is quite extreme. A lot of people have played with it.
Come on, I think like a large portion of the financial industry is based on gambling and gaming. Like that's what
but you condemned the financial industry, and Bitcoin is actually an extreme example of that.
I don't think so. Like I traveled to Amsterdam, to London, to Warsaw, to Prague, you know, to Barcelona, and I never once, and Rio de Janeiro, and I never once paid money to money changers. Like I was able to change my money without paying any fees whatsoever.
Yeah, but you can do that in real currency as well, in all fairness. There's plenty of services out there that you can do it for pretty much next to zero. And in fact, Bitcoin encompasses the spread, which incorporates the change back into real currency. I guarantee you, on the major exchanges, your Bitcoin spread, or the price you buy and sell at, incorporates the exchange rate back into US dollars or sterling or euros anyway. So the cost of transaction is always there.
Finding people and doing trades with them. You cannot do that with yen, because if I have like a bunch of yen in my pocket, and I say to you, do you want to like trade my yen for British pounds? You'd be like, why would I want this? I'm not going to Japan anytime soon. But like Bitcoin is actually something that anyone anywhere in the world can actually use right now. And so it actually does make sense to have people in every city who are actually exchanging Bitcoins. And it's not some hypothetical thing, it's something that's happening now. And something that I've actually been using like for months.
And I agree with you, there's potential, but that's basically just given an explanation of a credit card, right?
No, it's not a credit card, because a credit card you pay fees. But I'm saying that I'm able to change money without paying any fees.
You do pay fees.
We can all have a really good discussion about that.
So I kind of just want to ask about, I mean, it's pretty clear that nobody wants bitcoins or dollars, or for that matter anything, currency-wise, for its own sake. I mean, unless you're a bit strange, you want to use it for something. So bitcoins their value has to be underpinned by willingness of people to accept them for something that's real.
Yeah.
Somewhere in the world. And, I mean, I'm just looking here. Apparently, I can buy almost anything in Finland with it, and it's perfectly legal. What do you think the relationship is between Bitcoin's value and the footprint of places where you can actually spend them? Because at some point there is going to be a clampdown where the governments say you can't take these, and we'll check and we'll fine you or put you in jail. I mean, there are already quite strict constraints on how you can use semi-anonymous debit and credit cards, although they do exist. So what do you think that the relationship between that footprint and the use of Bitcoins is going to be, and particularly how that would compare to cash and other forms of semi-anonymous payments?
So here you have like a currency which started out from $0, and there was like an example of someone who bought a pizza for like 30,000 Bitcoins, and now each Bitcoin is worth like $10. And the reason is a lot of these people who are like technological people, they look at this system and they actually see like, wow, this has like massive potential. And so they really get enthusiastic about it, and they like really like get involved in it. There's like a lot of people who are like actually building Bitcoin businesses, even though they're not making anything, they're losing money, because they understand the potential that a system can bring like this to the whole of society. Like, imagine that you could actually fund mesh networks using a currency. You can actually incentivize the development of mesh networks which don't require the need to have ISPs, or you can create publicly funded infrastructure without needing a central authority. There's so many things that are possible. You can actually create contracts where you have like a group of funds which are owned by several people, and to actually send those funds out needs the total consent of all of those people involved. And that's something that's mathematically based, not something that's based off of legal contracts, which is a very fallible thing. And it only gets more and more deeper the more further along you go. Like.
Okay, that's really, really interesting. Thank you very, very much.
No worries.
Hang around if you want to go on a panel.